Well, let's hone in on activity on the local bourse. We've just been through yesterday's performance on the NSE, and consensus seems to be that valuations are starting to look attractive given the recent sell-off we've seen on this market. What's your take on the markets at the moment?
Well, the market has seen in the last 3 days, last three trading days, increase of about 2.5% overall. I think everyone, yes, you're right, everyone thought the 6 days previous of losses was overdone, and we've seen the market going up. But yesterday there was the market did go up by 0.19%, but it was a slower rate than it had gone the previous 2 days. So the steam behind this upward movement might be going down slightly.
So we are looking at some risk to this uptrend so far. To what extent are speculators in this market and contributing to the risk of breaking any sustainable upturn on the NSE?
It's really speculators and banking portfolios. Speculators, in a sense, are coming to the market, trying to make a quick profit and leaving the market. So when the market rises for a sustained period of 2 or 3 days, they ride the market, then sell to book in those profits. So that's having an effect. Another effect is that the banking portfolios, a lot of their significant part of their NPLs were in margin trading, and so they have a portfolio of stocks which they're trying to sell down, especially in line of CBN's new announcement that margin trading should only be 10% of their total loan portfolio by 1st of September 2010. So you're going to have that downward effect as well on the market after you see prices moving up slightly.
Well, certainly the CBN's voice getting louder and louder. We've heard today that we've seen some approval of that AMC harmonization, and that the president may well pass this by the end of the week. What impact do you see this AMC now having on the banking sector specifically moving forward?
I think it'll have two effects. On the banks that scaled the CBN audit last year, what it will do is that you should see some upward movement in their share price, because the AMC bill is supposed to take some NPLs also from the banks that did not need to be rescued. So for shareholders, they foresee a healthier balance sheet and more liquidity in those banks. For the banks that were rescued by CBN, you have two contrary movements. You have those that, because the NPLs will be taken off their balance sheets, should put them in a healthier state and more attractive to investors. You should see some positive influences there. But there will also be negative influence for shareholders, because the existing shareholders are not sure what position there will be if the banks are sold off to new parties, or how much they'll be diluted and what process they'll have in there. So there will be a negative influence from existing shareholders, and the AMC might speed up the buy-up of these rescued banks by other parties. So
in that context then, I mean, how are you playing the banking space at the moment? What banks for you are standing in the spotlight right now?
I think in the banks that were not rescued, I think you have the high flyers, Zenith, GTB, Stanbic IBTC, that have shown, and First Bank really, which have shown you good results, and especially in Q1 this year, and seem to have their processes in place, and are going to, as soon as there's more liquidity in the system and there's more transparency on the loan book and more loans are given out, we'll be able to ride the wave. I think in terms of the rescued banks, there are 1 or 2 key banks I think that will need to be taken over, and I think those banks, for all purposes, will not be liquidated no matter what happens. I think we talk about Intercontinental, Oceanic and PHP, which are quite important banks in the system, and the CBN will be wanting them to be taken over either by existing banks or new shareholders.
So on that M&A activity front, let's focus in on Standard Bank here. I mean, we saw the bank yesterday announce that it's prowling for commercial and retail banking opportunities in Nigeria, and that of course includes expansion into Nigeria. We know that Standard Bank has some kind of arm into the Nigerian market via Stanbic IBTC. What are prospects for Standard Bank and its expansion in Nigeria looking like at the moment?
Well, Standard Bank are in a good position because they have a good cash reserves which they can use to buy acquisitions. Their merger with IBTC within their local subsidiary Stanbic and IBTC has been 2 or 3 years in the making now. They've managed to embed that merger, and they merge a strong institution. So they're probably in a position to look at further additive mergers or acquisitions that will add to their brand. But we also have to bear in mind that Stanbic IBTC are also one of the advisors to CBN on the recapitalization of the rescued banks. So there might be a slight conflict of interest there in that regard. But apart from that, I think they're in a good position to acquire or merge with some of the other banks.
One would assume that there's a lot of confidence surrounding this company at the moment, because when it comes to regulation specifically, we know that Nigeria hasn't really implemented Basel II as yet, but Stanbic IBTC itself is going down this route moving forward. To what extent is this influencing confidence levels in the bank, in its sustainability of growth moving forward?
The buzzword at the Nigerian market now is transparency, and moving towards Basel II increases transparency both for investors and for depositors. And so anything that improves transparency is a good thing. I think Stanbic IBTC are in a good stead there. There are a number of local banks which have also said they're moving towards Basel II. I named GTB for one. I know UBA have mentioned that they're moving towards Basel II. So a number of the key banks are moving towards that to increase transparency and confidence in the sector. And I think Stanbic IBTC, by announcing that, is putting himself as one of the leading lights in that regard.
Well, certainly lots of positives to be highlighted in this space, and will be interesting to see how this moves going forward.